Hi there, Thomasina Williams of Sankofa Legacy Advisors. Back for day 10, the final day of my 10-day video series, inviting you to reimagine what might be possible if you choose to engage differently with your family this year. Day 1 was December 27th, my birthday, and the invitation was simply to reimagine what might be possible if you choose to engage differently with your family. Day 2, the invitation was to reflect on who might you need to become in order to engage differently. What qualities or characteristics might you want to bring forward? And then on day 3, the invitation was to reflect on where do you feel discomfort in your body? Our bodies are constantly sending us signals. We just tend to overlook them most of the time. Day 4's invitation was to reflect back on all those different situations where you feel discomfort in your body and to think about what were the factual context for those different situations. And then after you reflect on the context, what patterns did you discern? In day 5, we moved on to talking about the first of 4 patterns that humans instinctively, habitually resort to ease discomfort when there's tension in a relationship. Day 5, the invitation was to reflect on the first of those patterns, triangles. Where are you engaged in an anxious triangle? The invitation was to think about, are there instances where you have inserted yourself into a relationship between two other people when they really should be dealing with the situation on their own? Or have you been invited to send messages back and forth between family members? A third scenario in which triangles arise is when there is some sort of uneasiness or tension in a relationship. And rather than you focus on addressing that tension or the source of it, people will instinctively focus on a third party instead. Those 3 are all examples of triangles. So, day 5, where were you engaged in anxious triangles? Day 6, we moved on to the second pattern, which is over and under functioning. And that is exactly what it sounds like. The invitation was to reflect on where are you over functioning and that you've taken on responsibility that really belongs to someone else. Or where are you under functioning in that you are not stepping up to assume responsibility for something that is yours and you're allowing others to handle it for you? Day 7, we moved on to pattern number 3, which is conflict. People tend to think about conflict as personal, but actually it's part of the systems, your family systems response to some sort of underlying tension. And the reactivity of the folks involved in the conflict is where that tension is surfacing. So the invitation on day 7 was to reflect on where is there a conflict that you're involved in that appears to be personal, but when you reflect on it, there really is no personal animus. There is some underlying lack of clarity around boundaries, perhaps, expectations, roles, or responsibilities. The last of the 4 patterns is distance. On day 8, we took a look at distance and touched on the fact that distance can be physical, yes, as in someone saying they need to, quote, move across the country to get away from their family, or distance has not physical distance, but emotional distance. You can be in a relationship with someone physically present, but emotionally checked out. And then another way that distance shows up is that you can also be too close. A situation where there's an insistence on everyone having to do the same thing or, quote, get on the same page. So the invitation for day 8 was to look at where is there distance in your relationships. And then yesterday, day 9, the invitation was to reflect across all these different patterns that we've talked about over the last several days and reflect on which one shows up most in your life. Which of these patterns, triangles, over under functioning, conflict, or distance, seems to show up most in your life? Now, these are patterns. So, by definition, patterns in relationships are going to involve more than one person. It may be that one pattern or type of pattern shows up with one family member and a different pattern shows up with a different family member. The point of this is to have you to reflect and really think about your own behavior in the context of what is happening within your family. And as my birthday gift to you, I promise today to send you a link to a self assessment. I call it a pattern snapshot. It's only one page in terms of the assessment portion. And then there's another page with information that you may find helpful if you choose to engage differently with your family, how to go about doing that. And that is the invitation for today, is to click on the link that is in the description below. Download the assessment. You don't have to send me anything or share with anyone what the results are. This is strictly for you to increase your own self-awareness. And it's not necessarily to brand you in any way. This is simply a data point, a data point. Depending upon the situation or the family member you think about when you complete the assessment, your results may be completely different. Again, an opportunity for reflection and a place to start. And at the end of the assessment, the invitation is to choose just one small step of a category of steps that are provided in the assessment on the second page of it. Choose one small step and then just begin taking that one action repeatedly, consistently. The only way to make progress is to actually do the thing. One small step, practice consistently, and observe what happens. What happens within you, what happens with your relationships. And once you feel pretty comfortable with that one, take another step. And then you practice that one for a while and you take another step and another step. And that's how you make progress. I would also invite you to record your progress so that you can look back and see just how far you have come. You may amaze yourself. So, thank you very much for joining me on this 10-day journey. If this type of leadership development approach is of interest to you, I invite you to join me next Thursday, January 15th at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard for a 1 hour briefing where I'm going to go deeper on the subject of triangles, the first of the 4 patterns that we talked about as part of this video series. You can find a link to register for that in the description below. And until then, I wish you and your family a very rewarding and engaging and prosperous new year. And if you need any support, you know how to reach me. Simply respond to the information that's provided on the YouTube, or if you saw this in my newsletter, you can always reply to the newsletter. There's no obligation to share, but if you'd like to have a private, confidential conversation, I'd be more than happy to do that. And I'm curious about what your experience has been reflecting on how you might reimagine engaging with your family. What could be possible if you choose to do some things a little bit differently this year? Here's to your success. Hope to see you on January 15th. Link in the description below.